The pink wallet had a unicorn sticker on the front, half peeled and faded from a summer of small hands opening and closing it. Lily Hart set it on the counter beside the ketchup bottles, unsnapped the clasp, and pulled out a single-dollar bill, creased, soft as cloth, the kind of bill that had passed through 100 pockets before landing in hers. The man in the corner booth hadn't ordered anything. He sat with both hands flat on the table, staring at the laminated menu like it owed him money. His leather vest carried patches she couldn't read from this distance, and his gray beard was trimmed close to a jaw that looked carved from oak. A half-empty water glass sat in front of him. The free kind, no ice, the kind her mother gave to people who walked in from the heat and sat down without looking at the menu. Lily crossed the checkered linoleum in 4 quick steps, her sneakers squeaking. "Here," she said, placing the dollar next to his water glass. Cole Maddox looked at the bill, then at the girl. His brow folded. "I can't take that, kid. Mom says nobody should go without water just because they don't have money." Lily pushed the bill an inch closer. "You can get a lemonade. It's $1.25, but Mom won't charge the extra quarter if you're nice." Behind the front counter, Ava Hart wasn't watching. She stood with her back half turned, one hand gripping a clipboard, the other pressing against the side of her head like she was trying to hold her skull together. Across from her, a man in a short-sleeved dress shirt tapped a folded document against the formica. "Mrs. Hart, the compliance window closed last Thursday. I don't set the dates. It's Mississippi, and the window was supposed to be 30 days. That letter came 19 days ago. The letter is dated the 1st. That's 31 days. I received it on the 12th. My mailbox. Postmark governs, ma'am. Not receipt." Cole watched the exchange from the corner booth. He could hear enough. Words like abatement, fire suppression certification, closure pending reinspection. He'd heard those words before, in other towns, attached to other small places that smelled like griddle grease and fresh coffee and decades of someone's whole life poured into one building. Lily still stood beside his table, her hands clasped behind her back, rocking slightly on her heels. "What's your name?" Cole asked. "Lily, like the flower." "Lily, does your mom know you're giving away your money?" The girl glanced toward the counter. Ava was signing something, her jaw tight. "She's busy, but she'd say it's okay. She always says helping people is never a waste." Cole picked up the dollar. He didn't put it in his pocket. He folded it once, lengthwise, and tucked it into the chest pocket of his vest, behind the patch that read Charity, Ride Coordinator. "I'll hold on to this," he said, "but I'm paying it back. With interest." Lily smiled, a gap-toothed flash, and trotted back toward the kitchen door where her coloring book lay open on a stool. Cole drained the free water, set the glass down gently, and stood. He was 6'2" even without the boots, and the boots added another inch and a half. He walked to the counter just as the man in the dress shirt was folding his clipboard shut. "All set?" Cole asked, though the question wasn't aimed at the inspector. Ava looked up. Her eyes were rimmed red, but dry. She wasn't the crying type. He could see that immediately. She was the type who cried later, in the shower, where no one could hear it. "We're fine," she said. Flat. Final. The inspector left without acknowledging Cole. The bell above the door chimed once and fell silent. "Ma'am," Cole said, "I couldn't help overhearing. You've got a fire compliance issue. I've got a man who says my suppression system failed inspection, which is impossible because I paid $12,000 to have it overhauled 8 months ago." She caught herself, straightened. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this. Can I get you something? On the house. Your daughter already covered me." He touched the pocket where the dollars sat. "That inspection, who did your overhaul?" Ava hesitated. Trust was not a reflex for her. "A contractor. Voss Commercial Services. They were recommended by the County Small Business Alliance." Cole nodded slowly. The name didn't register yet, but the pattern did. Overhaul, reinspection failure, compliance closure. He'd seen it 3 towns back, at a bakery that went under in 6 weeks. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said, "and I won't be alone." He pushed through the glass door into the parking lot, where his road king sat alone on the asphalt. The afternoon sun hit the chrome and scattered light across the pavement like thrown coins. The next morning came early and loud. Lily was in the kitchen helping her Aunt Nora fold napkins when she heard it. A distant thunder that didn't stop. It grew, layered, rhythmic. She slid off her stool and pressed her face to the front window of the restaurant. They came down Route 9 in a column that stretched back beyond the curve. 200 motorcycles, give or take, rolling in formation at parade speed. They turned, not into the restaurant lot, which couldn't hold 20 bikes, let alone 200, but into the fairground staging area across the road. The old exhibition lot with its cracked asphalt and faded parking lines, where the county had issued event permits all summer. Lily watched Cole dismount. He was near the front, 5th or 6th in line. Behind him, riders killed their engines in sequence, a cascading silence that somehow felt louder than the noise had been. Each one wore the same patch on the back of their vest, a winged skull, unmistakable even at distance. Hell's Angels. And each one, as they swung off their bikes and stretched road-stiff legs, pulled something from a vest pocket or saddlebag. Small rectangles of paper. Breakfast tickets. Cole crossed the road on foot, looked both ways like a man who'd been raised right, and pushed open the restaurant door. The bell chimed. "Morning, Miss Hart," he said. "I've got about 200 people who'd like to buy breakfast. If you're open." Ava stood behind the counter with a coffee pot in one hand and her mouth slightly open. She looked past him, through the window, at the sea of leather and chrome filling the fairground. "I can't seat 200 people. We'll come in batches, 20 at a time, and every one of them pays full price." He set a breakfast ticket on the counter, a pre-printed voucher with a meal value and a serial number. "These are from the Charity Ride Fund. Legitimate. Taxable. You'll have a paper trail cleaner than a church ledger." Ava set the coffee pot down. Her hand was shaking, just slightly. "Why?" she asked. Cole reached into his vest pocket and produced the folded dollar bill. "Because your kid thinks a stranger deserves lemonade money. And because that contractor's name showed up in my files 2 months ago." He placed the dollar on the counter beside the ticket. "This isn't charity, Miss Hart. This is breakfast. The rest, that's something I need to talk to you about. But it can wait until after you've fed the first 20. Ava looked at the dollar, then at Cole, then at her daughter, who was watching from the kitchen doorway with wide eyes and a napkin still clutched in one hand. "Lily," Ava said, "go help Aunt Nora with the silverware. We're about to get very busy." Lily grinned and vanished behind the swinging door. Ava turned back to Cole. "After the first 20, she said. Then we talk." The first wave of 20 riders filled every booth and lined the counter. They ordered eggs, pancakes, bacon, hash browns, nothing fancy, everything hot. They tipped in cash, left their plates stacked neatly, and filed out to make room for the next group. By 10:30, Ava had burned through 4 flats of eggs and 2 cases of bread, and the register tape was longer than her arm. Cole sat in the corner booth, the same one from yesterday, nursing his 3rd coffee and waiting. When the 6th wave cleared out and the dining room went briefly quiet, Ava wiped her hands on her apron and slid into the seat across from him. She set a folded document on the table between them. "That's the notice," she said. "Closure pending fire suppression reinspection. Dated the 1st of last month. I received it on the 12th because my mail gets routed through a P.O. box since the street box got hit by a plow last winter." Cole unfolded it. He didn't read fast. He read carefully, the way a man reads when he's looking for the thing that doesn't belong. "Voss Commercial Services," he said, tapping a line halfway down. "They did your original overhaul? 8 months ago. $12,000. New suppression heads, new alarm panel, new inspection tags. I watched them install it." She crossed her arms. "And now the county says it failed reinspection, that the tags are expired, that the system was never properly certified. Who performed the reinspection? An independent inspector. Names on the 2nd page." Cole flipped. "Harlan Reed. You know him?" "I know the name." Cole reached into the leather satchel beside him, a flat portfolio case, scarred from years of saddlebag storage, and pulled out a manila folder. He opened it on the table and fanned 3 sheets of paper. 2 months ago, the chapter organized a benefit ride for a bakery over in Dunmore. Same county, same story. Owner paid for a full fire system overhaul, then got hit with a reinspection failure 6 months later. Lost the shop. He pointed to a line on one of the sheets. Contractor, Voss Commercial Services. Inspector who failed it, Harlan Reed. Ava stared at the papers. "That's a coincidence." "Once is a coincidence." Cole pulled a 4th sheet from the folder. "This is from a laundromat in Breck Falls. failed reinspection, closed down, sold to a property group at 30 cents on the dollar. Same contractor. Same inspector. He tapped the page. Same equipment serial number. Ava's eyes snapped to his. What do you mean, same serial number? The suppression head model number on your invoice. Check it. Ava pulled her phone from her apron pocket, scrolled through photos until she found the one she'd taken of the invoice months ago. She read the number aloud. Cole pointed to the Dunmore Bakery's invoice. The number matched. Then the Breck Falls Laundromat. Identical. That's the serial number for the alarm panel, Ava said slowly. Each panel should have a unique number. It's etched at the factory. Right? Which means one of two things. Either Voss installed the same panel in 3 different buildings, which is impossible, or he never installed new equipment at all. He slapped new tags on old hardware, charged full price, and counted on nobody cross-referencing serial numbers across different towns. Ava sat back. The color had drained from her face, then returned in 2 bright spots high on her cheeks. Anger, not fear. $12,000, she said quietly. I took a second mortgage for that. I know. Cole gathered the papers. Here's what I need you to understand, Miss Hart. This isn't just about your restaurant. This is at least 3 businesses I can document, probably more. And the way Voss works, he doesn't just take the repair money. He uses the reinspection failure to force a sale. You got a purchase offer yet? Ava was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached under the counter, pulled out a sealed envelope, and set it on the table. Came yesterday. I hadn't opened it. Cole didn't touch it. That's your property, your decision. But I'd suggest you open it, read it, and then put it somewhere safe. Because the return address on that envelope is going to matter. Ava tore it open. Inside was a single-page letter on corporate letterhead, Granite Peak Properties, LLC, and offered to purchase her building and the attached lot for a sum that was insulting, barely enough to cover what she still owed on the mortgage and the repair loan combined. Who's Granite Peak Properties? She asked. That, Cole said, is what I intend to find out. But I need your permission before I dig any deeper into your business. This isn't my restaurant, and these aren't my files to share with anyone unless you say so. Ava looked through the window. Outside, the last group of riders was mounting up in the fairground lot, their engines rumbling to life in sequence. Across the road, Lily's face appeared briefly in the kitchen's small window, watching the bikes with the kind of wonder that only a 9-year-old could sustain. What do you need from me? Ava asked. 3 things. Your original Voss contract, your canceled check or bank transfer receipt, and a copy of that reinspection notice. He paused. And one more thing, don't respond to that purchase offer. Don't call them, don't write back, don't even throw it away. Just wait. Ava nodded slowly. And if they try to shut me down before the reinspection? You've got a compliance window of 14 days from the notice date to request a contested reinspection with a different inspector. That's county code, not Voss's rules. Cole tapped the notice. You're still inside that window. File the request today. How do you know county fire code? Cole allowed himself the thinnest edge of a smile. Because this isn't the first time someone in a vest has had to read the fine print to protect someone who got cheated. He stood, gathered his folder, and dropped a 20 on the table for the coffee. I'll be at the chapter's regional office in Millfield this afternoon. Ride's about 40 minutes east. I've got a contact at the county fire marshal's office, retired, but he still has access to the inspection database. If that serial number shows up in more than 3 filings, we're not looking at a con. We're looking at a racket. And then what? Then we bring it to someone with a badge and a subpoena, not a fist. He buttoned his vest. I'll call you tonight. Answer the phone. He walked out. The bell chimed. Ava watched him cross the road, mount the Road King, and join the last departing column. She sat alone in the booth for a full minute. Then she picked up the dollar bill still lying on the counter, looked at it, and tucked it into the register's empty slot, the one she kept for bills she never intended to spend. The Millfield chapter office was a single-story cinder block building set back from a county road, unmarked except for a steel mailbox and a flagpole flying the state flag. Inside, it smelled like old coffee, motor oil, and the particular mustiness of filing cabinets that hadn't been replaced since the 80s. Cole sat at a folding table with his laptop open and his reading glasses perched on his nose, a concession to age he'd stopped fighting 5 years ago. Across from him, a speakerphone sat between 2 stacks of paper. Anchor, you still there? The voice on the phone belonged to Dale Kemper, retired fire marshal's investigator, now a part-time consultant who spent most of his days fishing and answering exactly these kinds of calls. Still here, Dale. What did you find? I ran that serial number through the state database. The equipment panel registered under that number. It's a Sentinel Pro 4400 alarm control unit, manufactured in 2019. According to the registry, it was installed in a commercial property in Dunmore. That's the only legitimate installation on file. So when Voss put the same number on Ava Hart's invoice, he either cloned the tag or he photoshopped the paperwork. Either way, the equipment in her restaurant isn't registered to her address, which means technically, her system shows as unregistered in the state database, which is why a reinspection would fail automatically. Bingo. The inspector doesn't even have to look at the hardware. He pulls the serial, it doesn't match the address. The system flags as non-compliant. Done. Cole leaned back. The metal chair creaked. How many addresses can you search for that one serial number? Give me a day. I'll run it tonight when the system's quiet. But Anchor, if this is what I think it is, you need to bring this to the active bureau. I'm retired. I can pull records, but I can't compel anyone to do anything. I know. I just need the paper trail solid before I walk it in. These guys have lawyers, Dale. If I show up with half a case, it disappears into a filing cabinet, and Ava Hart loses her building. Understood. I'll call you tomorrow by noon. Cole ended the call and sat in the quiet. Through the small window, he could see the fairground lot across the road from Ava's restaurant. Empty now, the 200 bikes scattered to homes and garages across 3 counties. The charity ride had been scheduled for months, a benefit route that happened to terminate in this town. Coincidence had brought him to Ava's door. Lily's dollar had made him stay. He opened his phone and dialed Ava's number. She picked up on the second ring. Cole, you filed that contested reinspection request. Went to the county clerk's office 2 hours ago. They stamped it received. Reinspection is scheduled for next Thursday. Good. Who's the assigned inspector? A pause. Paper rustling. Doesn't say yet. They said they'd mail confirmation within 48 hours. If it comes back as Harlan Reed, you call me immediately. We'll file a conflict of interest objection. Understood. Another pause. Cole, the breakfast tickets today. Those riders paid full price for every plate. That's over $4,000 in one morning. That's what happens when 200 people eat eggs. I haven't made $4,000 in a week in months. Not since the reinspection notice went up in the window and half my regulars assumed I had a health violation. Cole understood. A closure notice, even a temporary one, was a death sentence for a small restaurant. People saw the sign and stopped coming. Revenue dried up. The owner couldn't afford to fight, couldn't afford to hire a lawyer, couldn't afford a second reinspection. And then the purchase offer arrived. Just low enough to insult, just high enough to feel like the only lifeline. Miss Hart, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Go ahead. When Voss did your overhaul, did he ever give you a separate certificate? A physical document, not just the invoice. Something with the panel serial number printed on it. Silence. Then, yes. A framed certificate. He hung it by the fire extinguisher near the kitchen door. Said the inspector would look for it during any future check. Is it still there? Should be. Hold on. He heard her footsteps, a door swinging, then a long quiet. When she came back, her voice was tight. It's gone. Gone how? The nail's still in the wall. The frame isn't. When's the last time you saw it? Honestly, I don't look at it. It's wallpaper. But it was there when, it had to be there at least 2 weeks ago. We had a birthday party for a regular, and I moved the extinguisher to make room for balloons. I would have noticed if the frame was missing then. So sometime in the last 2 weeks, someone removed a certificate from inside your restaurant. Nobody's been in here except staff and customers. And the inspector, the one who came yesterday to deliver the closure notice. The line went quiet. Cole could hear her breathing, slow, deliberate, the kind of breathing a person does when they're trying not to scream. That's circumstantial, she said finally. You're right. It is. But if Dale finds what I think he'll find tomorrow, we won't need the certificate. The database records will speak for themselves. He paused. Lock your filing cabinet tonight. Anything with Voss's name on it, the contract, the payment records, the original inspection report. Put them somewhere that isn't the restaurant. Where? Somewhere you trust. A relative's house. A safe deposit box. Not digital, physical copies. If anyone asks, you're reorganizing your paperwork. You think they'd break in? I think a man who steals a framed certificate off a wall in broad daylight doesn't have a lot of boundaries left. He heard her exhale. All right, I'll move the files tonight. My sister Nora lives 10 minutes away. Good. One more thing, the breakfast revenue today. Deposit it first thing tomorrow. Don't hold cash in the register overnight. Not with a closure notice making you look vulnerable. Cole. Her voice was steadier now. Focused. What happens if the reinspection fails again? Even with a different inspector? It won't. Because by Thursday, we'll know exactly what equipment is actually installed in your ceiling, and we'll have independent documentation of its true serial numbers. If the hardware doesn't match what Voss invoiced, and I'm certain it won't, then the failure isn't yours. It's his. And if it does match, then I'll buy you a steak dinner and apologize. But it won't match. Get some sleep, Miss Hart. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. He hung up and stared at the phone for a moment. Through the window, the setting sun painted the cinder block wall orange. Somewhere in this county, a man named Grant Voss was sleeping soundly, confident that another small business was about to fold into his lap like a poker hand. Cole opened his laptop and began typing an email to the county fire marshal's active office. Not a complaint. Not yet. Just a public records request. The kind of request that left a paper trail of its own. Dale Kemper called at 11:14 the next morning. 7, he said without preamble. Cole set down his coffee. 7 addresses? 7 commercial properties in this county alone, all showing the same Sentinel Pro 4400 serial number in their inspection filings. 4 of them are already sold. The other 3, including your restaurant, are currently in reinspection limbo. Cole pulled a notepad from his vest and wrote the number down. 7. Can you send me the list? Already in your email. But here's the part that made me spill my coffee. 4 of the sold properties were all purchased by the same LLC. Granite Peak Properties. That's the name on Ava's purchase offer. And here's the kicker. I looked up Granite Peak's registered agent. It's a lawyer in Brookfield. But the LLC's sole member? Filed with the Secretary of State 18 months ago. Dale paused for effect. Grant Voss. Cole closed his eyes. There it was. The full loop. Voss installs fake equipment, charges real money, waits 6 to 8 months, triggers a reinspection failure using his own rigged serial numbers, then swoops in through his own LLC to buy the distressed property at a fraction of its value. It's not a con, Cole said. It's a machine. A well-oiled one. For properties already consumed. That's probably $500,000 in real estate acquired for pennies. Dale, can you get me copies of the original inspection filings for those 4 sold properties? The ones that show the same serial number. Already pulled them. But listen to me. Anchor, this is enough for a criminal referral. Fraud, theft by deception, maybe RICO if the DA's feeling ambitious. You need to hand this to law enforcement. I will, but not yet. Why not? Because Ava's reinspection is Thursday. If I go to the DA now, it takes weeks to open an investigation. Meanwhile, Voss sends his inspector in, fails her again, and accelerates the closure. She loses the building while the legal system warms up. Cole stood and paced the small office. I need to get through Thursday first. If she passes that reinspection with an independent inspector and documented proof that her equipment was tampered with, Voss loses his leverage. Then I go to the DA with 7 addresses and a pattern that even a first-year prosecutor can't ignore. And if Voss finds out you're digging, then he'll try to accelerate. Move the timeline up. Maybe send someone to convince Ava to take the offer before Thursday. Cole grabbed his keys. Which is why I'm driving to Breck Falls this afternoon to talk to the laundromat owner. The one who already sold. I need a witness, someone who went through this and can describe the playbook. Be careful, Anchor. Voss isn't street muscle, but men who steal buildings tend to have friends who are. I'm not going alone. He called 2 brothers, Tank and Sullivan, both solid, both local, and they rode together to Breck Falls in a light rain that slicked the roads just enough to keep them honest on the curves. The laundromat had been converted to a storage facility, but the former owner, a man named Pete Galvin, still lived 2 blocks away in a duplex with a for rent sign on the other half. Pete was 52, thin, and had the wary eyes of someone who'd been beaten by paperwork instead of fists. He let them in, offered instant coffee, and sat at his kitchen table like a man reporting to a parole officer. Voss Commercial Services, Pete said when Cole showed him the invoice. Yeah, 12,000 for a full suppression overhaul. Brand new everything. Or so he said. He rubbed his face. 6 months later, I get a re-inspection notice. Failure. Non-compliant equipment. I called Voss. He said there must have been a manufacturer defect. Offered to redo the work for another 8,000. I couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford a lawyer either. Then the closure notice came, and a week after that, the purchase offer. Granite Peak Properties offered me 40 cents on the dollar. My accountant said take it. My wife said take it. I took it. He looked at the table. 3 months later, the building's listed for double what they paid me. New tenant moved in like nothing ever happened. Pete, did you keep any of your original Voss paperwork? Everything. My wife made me keep it because she said someday somebody would come asking. He stood, left the room, and returned with the accordion file thick with papers. Invoices, contracts, payment receipts, the inspection certificate, everything. Cole opened the file carefully. There it was, the same serial number. The same Sentinel Pro 4400. The same framed certificate template, printed on the same stock paper. Would you be willing to sign an affidavit describing what happened to you? Cole asked. Pete looked at Tank and Sullivan, standing quiet by the door. Will it help someone else not get screwed like I did? A woman with a 9-year-old daughter is about to lose her family restaurant the same way you lost your laundromat. We're trying to stop it. Pete pulled a pen from a cup on the counter. Where do I sign? That evening, Cole called Ava. Your re-inspection confirmation, did it arrive? This afternoon. The assigned inspector is Mark Donnelly, County Fire Marshal's office. Not Harlan Reed? No. Someone new. Is that good? It's good. It means your conflict of interest objection wasn't necessary. They assigned someone clean on their own. He paused. But Ava, I need to prepare you for something. Voss may not wait until Thursday. What do you mean? I mean that I spent today pulling records and talking to witnesses. If Voss has anyone watching, and men like this sometimes do, he knows someone is asking questions. He might try to push the timeline. Show up at your restaurant with a new excuse. A surprise pre-inspection. An emergency order. Something designed to either scare you into signing that offer or to get inside and tamper with whatever equipment is actually on your ceiling. What do I do? Nothing alone. From now until Thursday, you don't let anyone into that building who isn't a paying customer, a confirmed county employee with badge ID you can photograph, or someone you've personally invited. If Voss or anyone from his company shows up, you don't argue with them. You don't engage. You call me, and you call the county clerk to confirm whether any emergency order has actually been filed. And if they have a document that looks real, photograph it. Every page, front and back. Then tell them you need 24 hours to have your attorney review it before granting access. That's your legal right as a property leaseholder. I don't have an attorney. You do now. A brother in the chapter, Sullivan. He's got a paralegal certification. He's not a lawyer, but he's enough to buy time. I'll give you his number. The line was quiet for a moment. Then Ava spoke, and her voice had that quality again. The one that wasn't afraid, exactly, but was instead calculating. Measuring. Cole, why are you doing all this? Really, $1 from a 9-year-old doesn't explain this. He considered the question. He could have given her a line. Something about brotherhood, or paying it forward, or the code. But she deserved better than a line. Because I've been doing charity rides for 12 years, and in that time I've watched 22 small businesses go under in this county. Some from bad luck, some from bad management. But 5 of them, maybe 6, went down in ways that didn't smell right. Same timeline, same pattern. I couldn't prove it then. He exhaled. Now I can. Your restaurant is the one where the pattern finally has enough paper behind it to mean something. You're not just saving your business, Miss Hart. You're the case that makes the other 6 matter. Another silence. Then, Thursday. Wednesday evening, Grant Voss made his move. Ava was closing up. Lily was already at Nora's house for the night. A precaution Cole had suggested, when a white panel van pulled into the lot. 2 men got out. Neither was Voss. They wore navy coveralls with Voss Commercial stitched on the breast pocket and carried toolboxes. The taller one approached the door. Ava stood behind the glass, one hand on the deadbolt. Evening, ma'am. We're here for an emergency pre-inspection service check. Fire Marshal's office requested we verify your suppression system ahead of tomorrow's reinspection. I wasn't notified of any pre-inspection service check. It was called in this afternoon. Rush order. We just need 30 minutes inside to tag your panels. Ava pulled out her phone. I'll need to confirm that with the county clerk's office before I can grant access. The man's smile thinned. Ma'am, the clerk's office is closed. It's after 6. Then I'll confirm it in the morning. You can come back with a written order and a badge number from the fire marshal's office. This is time sensitive. So is my business. Good night. She locked the door with both deadbolts, the original and the one she'd had installed on Monday, and watched through the window as the two men stood in the lot for a long moment. The shorter one pulled out a phone. A brief conversation. Then they climbed back in the van and left. Ava's hands were shaking when she called Cole. They were here, she said. 2 guys in Voss coveralls. Wanted to get inside to tag the panels before tomorrow. You let them in? No. Good. Did you photograph them? The van. The license plate. And one of them. I got his face through the glass when he was talking to me. Send all of it to Sullivan right now. And to me. Cole's voice was calm, but underneath it was the particular controlled tension of a man whose suspicions had just been confirmed. They were trying to swap the equipment tags tonight. If they'd gotten in and replaced the serial number plates, tomorrow's inspection would show legitimate numbers and Voss's fraud would disappear. So they know someone's watching. They know enough to be nervous, which means tomorrow matters more than ever. He paused. I'm sending 2 people to sit in your lot overnight. Not inside, outside. In a truck, in the parking lot. Visible. If that van comes back, they won't get near the building. Cole, you're not alone in this, Ava. Stop acting like you have to be. She was quiet for a moment. Okay, thank you. Lock up. Go home. Get sleep. Tomorrow you stand in your own restaurant and watch an honest inspector prove what you already know. Thursday morning, 7:45. The restaurant was closed to customers. A sign on the door read, closed for scheduled maintenance, back for lunch. Inside, Ava stood by the counter in clean clothes, her hair pulled back, her file of documents arranged on a table she'd set up near the kitchen door. Present in the restaurant, Cole, Sullivan, with a notepad and a digital recorder he'd placed in plain sight on the table, and Mark Donnelly, the county fire marshal's inspector, a lean man in his 40s with a clipboard, a flashlight, and the bureaucratic neutrality of someone who had no personal stake in the outcome. Outside, in the lot, Tank sat in his truck with the engine off. Not threatening, not hiding, just present. At 8 sharp, Donnelly began his inspection. He started with the obvious, the fire extinguishers, the emergency exits, the kitchen hood suppression system. All passed without issue. Then he reached the alarm control panel. It was mounted on the wall between the kitchen and the back hallway, behind a small access door. Donnelly opened it, shone his flashlight on the equipment, and read the serial number stamped on the metal casing. Ma'am, can you provide your most recent installation invoice? Ava handed it over. Donnelly looked at the invoice, then back at the panel. He frowned. The serial number on your invoice doesn't match the serial number on this panel. I know, Ava said. Donnelly looked at her. You know? The number on my invoice is the same number that appears on at least 6 other commercial properties in this county. She stepped forward, calm, controlled. This was her moment, and she was not going to waste it on panic. Inspector Donnelly, I believe the contractor who performed my overhaul 8 months ago did not install new equipment. He affixed false tags and provided fraudulent documentation. The panel currently on my wall is my original pre-overhaul unit. Donnelly stared at her for 3 full seconds. Then he looked at Cole, at Sullivan, at the recorder on the table. Do you have documentation supporting that claim? Sullivan opened a folder and laid out the papers. Pete Galvin's signed affidavit. The matching invoices from 3 properties. Dale Kemper's database printout, showing 7 addresses under 1 serial number, and the purchase offer from Granite Peak Properties with Grant Voss listed as sole member. Donnelly read each document. He took his time. The restaurant was silent except for the tick of the wall clock and the occasional scrape of paper. I'm going to need to photograph this panel, he said. And I'm going to need to call my supervisor. Of course, Ava said. He photographed the panel from 6 angles. He photographed the serial number in close-up. He called his supervisor, a brief, murmured conversation in the hallway, and returned. Mrs. Hart. Mississippi. Miss Hart, based on what I'm seeing, I cannot certify this system as compliant because the installed hardware doesn't match any valid registration. However, he held up a hand. I'm also noting in my report that the discrepancy appears to be the result of contractor fraud, not owner negligence. I'm recommending that the closure order be suspended pending a formal investigation into Voss Commercial Services. Ava's eyes closed for just a moment. One breath. Two. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. This goes to the district attorney's office. It's going to take time, but your restaurant stays open while it does. At that moment, the front door opened. The bell chimed. Grant Voss walked in. He was taller than Cole had expected, 6 feet, broad-shouldered, wearing a sport coat over a polo shirt like a man who dressed for a business meeting, not a confrontation. His eyes swept the room and registered everything in half a second. The inspector, the recorder, the papers on the table, the 2 men in leather vests. Ava, he said, smiling. I heard you had your re-inspection today. Thought I'd stop by to see if there was anything I could. Mr. Voss. Inspector Donnelly stepped forward. I'm going to ask you to not touch anything in this building, and I'm going to ask you to leave. Voss's smile held, but something behind it shifted, like a gear slipping. I'm just a concerned contractor checking on a client. You're the subject of a formal referral I'm filing in approximately 30 minutes. I'd advise you to contact an attorney. Donnelly picked up his clipboard. Miss Hart, I have everything I need. My report will be filed by end of business today. You'll receive a copy by mail within 5 days. He walked past Voss without looking at him and out the front door. Voss stood in the middle of the restaurant. His smile was gone now. He looked at Ava, then at Cole, then at Sullivan's notepad. You're making a mistake, he said to Ava. I was trying to help you. You were trying to take my building, Ava said. Her voice didn't shake, not even a little. You charged me $12,000 for equipment you never installed. You triggered a fake re-inspection to shut me down, and then you sent your own company to buy me out. That's a serious accusation. You'd better have proof. 7 addresses, Cole said, standing. 1 serial number. For completed sales, all to your LLC. A signed witness affidavit. And your own team showing up last night, trying to swap tags before this morning's inspection. He stepped forward, not close enough to threaten, but close enough to be felt. The district attorney's office will have everything by this afternoon. Voss looked at Cole, at the patches on his vest, at the size of him, at the absolute absence of doubt in his eyes. Then he looked through the window at Tank, who had stepped out of his truck and was leaning against the hood with his arms crossed. This isn't over, Voss said. Yeah, Cole replied. It is. Voss turned and walked out. He didn't slam the door. He didn't run. He walked like a man who still believed his lawyer could fix this. Cole had seen that walk before. It usually lasted about 72 hours. The county district attorney's office opened a formal investigation the following Monday. By Wednesday, Grant Voss's business accounts were frozen pending forensic audit. Harlan Reed, the complicit inspector, resigned before he could be fired. 3 of the 4 property sales were flagged for potential reversal. None of this happened fast. None of it was dramatic. It unfolded in offices, in emails, in certified letters and court filings. The quiet machinery of a system that worked, slowly, when someone finally fed it enough paper to make it move. But on the Saturday after the inspection, something else happened. Cole arrived at Ava's restaurant at 7 in the morning. He wasn't alone. Behind him, filling the fairground lot with the same organized precision as before, 200 Hells Angels parked their bikes in rows. They'd been riding since dawn, a 100-mile charity route that began at the Millfield Chapter House and wound through 3 counties, collecting donations at every checkpoint. This time it wasn't breakfast tickets. The ride had been organized 6 weeks earlier, long before Cole ever walked into Ava's restaurant, as the chapter's annual small business benefit. The route, the checkpoints, the donation structure, all of it was pre-planned, pre-permitted, and documented with county event licenses that Cole had filed in April. But the beneficiary had changed. Originally, the fund was earmarked for a general small business repair grant, distributed through a transparent community foundation that the chapter had worked with for years. Now, with 7 documented fraud victims in the county, the foundation had a specific mandate, a repair fund to cover the cost of legitimate fire suppression overhauls for every business Voss had defrauded. Not cash in an envelope, not one family's bailout. A systemic fix for a systemic problem. Cole walked into the restaurant carrying a small frame. Not the kind that held a certificate. Smaller, the size of a greeting card. Behind the glass was a single dollar bill, soft and creased, with a handwritten note card beside it that read, Lily Hart, age 9. First investor. He set it on the counter. Ava picked it up and stared at it for a long time. I can't put this on the wall, she said. That's her dollar. It's not a debt, Cole said. It's a reminder. She saw someone who needed something, and she gave what she had. That's the whole thing. That's all any of this is. Ava ran her thumb along the edge of the frame. Behind her, the kitchen was already warming up. Nora was back there with the griddle, and the first smell of bacon was drifting through the pass-through window. Where is she? Cole asked. In the back. Drawing. Ava smiled. A real one, the first one Cole had seen that wasn't edged with exhaustion. She asked if she could make thank you cards for the writers. She can hand them out at lunch if you want. Through the window. Through the window? We set up a table outside, between the parking lot and the front door. She stands inside, passes cards out through the open window to anyone who walks up. Nora stays with her. She never goes outside, but she gets to be part of it. Ava considered this. She looked at the frame in her hands, at the dollar trapped behind glass like a pressed flower. Okay, she said, but she eats first. By noon, the restaurant was full again, cycling groups of 20, same as before, each one paying full price from the charity ride fund. But this time, as each group filed out, they passed the side window where Lily stood on a step stool, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration, handing each rider a hand-drawn card with a motorcycle on the front and thank you written in purple crayon inside. Some of the men, grizzled, road-worn, beards longer than Lily was tall, took those cards and folded them carefully into vest pockets. A few lingered by the window, complimented her artwork, asked her about the color choices. One man, a rider named Dutch who had forearms like bridge cables, told her the motorcycle she'd drawn looked exactly like his. Lily beamed. Nora stood beside her the entire time, one hand resting lightly on the girl's shoulder. At 2 in the afternoon, when the last group had eaten and the fairground lot was emptying, Cole came back inside. He found Ava at the register, counting the day's receipts. The number was staggering, not just from the breakfast tickets, but from regulars who'd come back. Word had spread. The closure notice was gone from the window. The restaurant was open. People who'd stayed away were returning. The fund total from today's ride, Cole said, setting a printout on the counter. $27,000. Distributed through the foundation to all 7 affected businesses. Your share covers a legitimate suppression overhaul by a certified contractor, not Voss. The installation is scheduled for next month. Ava looked at the number. I didn't ask for this. I know. I don't like owing people. You don't owe anyone. The foundation is funded by the ride. The ride was planned before I ever met you. The only thing that changed was where the money went, and that decision was made by a board, not by me. He paused. You're not a charity case, Ava. You're victim number 7 in a fraud investigation. The fund exists because the system failed you. All of you. She set the printout down and looked up at him. What happens to Voss? He's lawyered up. The DA's office is building the case. It'll take months, maybe a year. But his accounts are frozen, his LLC is under injunction, and his business license is suspended pending review. He's not buying any more buildings. And the ones he already bought? 3 of the 4 sellers have been contacted by the DA's office about potential sale reversals. Pete Galvin, the laundromat owner in Breck Falls. He might get his building back. Or compensation, at least. Cole shrugged. Justice is slow, but it's moving. Ava nodded. She reached under the counter and pulled out the frame Cole had brought that morning. She carried it to the wall near the front door, the spot where customers would see it first when they walked in, and hung it on a nail that was already there. A nail that had once held a health inspection certificate, years ago, before the old one had been replaced. The dollar bill sat behind glass, pinned and permanent. Beside it, the little note card, Lily Hart, age 9. First investor. It's not a debt, Ava repeated, more to herself than to Cole. It's a reminder. That's right. She stepped back and looked at it. The late afternoon sun came through the front window and caught the glass, turning it briefly gold. From the back of the restaurant, Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway. She had purple crayon on her fingers and a card in her hand. One she'd made, but not given away. Mom? I made one more. For the man with the gray beard. Ava looked at Cole. Cole looked at Lily. That's me, I think, he said. Lily crossed the dining room and held up the card. On the front, she'd drawn a motorcycle with exaggerated handlebars and a stick figure rider with a gray scribble on his chin. Inside, in her careful 9-year-old handwriting, it said, "Thank you for keeping your promise." Cole took the card. He looked at it for a long time. Then he folded it once, carefully, the way he'd folded the dollar, and tucked it into his vest pocket, behind the charity coordinator patch. "You're welcome, kid," he said. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "Thursday lunch?" he asked, looking back at Ava. "Kitchen opens at 11, she said. "Don't be late." The bell chimed as he pushed through into the afternoon. Outside, the last few bikes were rumbling out of the fairground lot, their riders lifting two-fingered waves to each other as they split off toward different roads. The sun sat low and heavy in a sky that was all copper and blue, and the sound of engines faded gradually into the kind of silence that small towns wear like a comfortable coat. Inside, Ava turned off the register, wiped down the counter, and looked one more time at the framed dollar by the door. Then she went to the kitchen, where her daughter was already asking what was for dinner, and the evening began the way evenings should, quietly, safely, and with the smell of something good on the stove.